Sunday. On my last day, I once more strolled down to the pier so that I might not only spend one last time by the sea, but also partake of the Under the Pier Show, housed within a rundown hut halfway along the pier's boardwalk. During previous visits to the pier, this entertainment had piqued my curiosity. Not sure what to expect, I push open the door and enter. What a surprise! For suddenly I find myself in a rough and ready interior lined with quirky and astonishingly imaginative slot machines. Certainly not the clanging, garish, mass-produced ones filling the slick amusement arcades fronting most seaside piers. These are the recent creation of Tom Hunkins, an engineering graduate from the University of Cambridge. Hunkins had often fantasized about having his own amusement arcade. Astounded as well as fascinated, I stop and listen to the laughter, giggles, and excited gasps rising from a few visitors who have dropped £1 into a slot and have been treated to a mechanical entertainment that satirically comments upon various contemporary scandals, environmental problems, and social predicaments. Unexpectedly, a different side of Southwold emerges. It is almost as if Orwell's ingenious, critical spirit was still roaming these parts. Entranced, I walk around and observe people working various machines. Among these are my nuke, which allows one to experience the thrills of inserting plutonium rods into a nuclear reactor. Whack a banker, which gives the visitor a chance to hit bankers' heads when they pop up. The game is to see how many bankers the player can knock on the head in 30 seconds. Brainwash, in which after putting £1 in the slot, a person places her head half inside a processing chamber and watches through mirrors while her scalp is removed and her brain scrubbed clean. And the Bath Escape, an epic underwater adventure exposing some of the North Sea's best-kept secrets. Having inserted payment, the player sits inside a closed submarine compartment and watches, quote, an estate agent fish, gazumping, swindling, retired executive fish in their luxury homes. The player also witnesses canisters of nuclear waste mating, tracks down the last card, and finally discovers the true Robert Maxwell lying among raw sewage. Of all these, the mobile masterclass thoroughly tickles me. The visitor stands on a treadmill and grips a walker, what the English call a Zimmer. While watching a screen displaying a busy highway with fast-moving cars, the person attempts to cross the road and not be killed. Before the individual begins, he must press a button indicating his age. The choices are 70, 80, or 90. I watch an excited little boy and his cheering parents attempt this challenge. It is a perfect example of a certain British humour. The boy actually maneuvers his Zimmer so that he is not run over. The other machine that delights me is Micro Break. One sits in a chair to experience a fast, efficient holiday. I believe it takes under 5 minutes. While seated and watching a TV screen, one is transported on a magic carpet to a tropical paradise and receives a brief suntan from a heat lamp. The instructions read, simply insert £1 and sit in the chair. Total relaxation. Never leave your chair. Perfect for the busy executive. Entire trip takes only 3 minutes. Eco-friendly. 100% recycled experience. No risk of deep vein thrombosis. Astounding value. Complete holiday package for only £1. No hidden expenses. Thoroughly refreshed, maybe a little lightheaded by this experience, but worried I have stayed too long, I rush back up the hill to the Blythe Hotel, collect my belongings, and wait for my taxi to return me to the railway station in Darsham. I hope to catch the late afternoon train. The return. When the driver lets me off at the station, I duly cross the tracks and go up to a lonely platform. Not a person is in sight. Imagine my horror when I glance at the electronic announcement board and learn that my train has been cancelled. Like the ancient mariner, I feel alone, all alone. What to do? I'm in the middle of nowhere and there's no help. The station building no longer belongs to the railway. Nobody is there. I don't know if or when the next train is scheduled to arrive, if at all. It is a Sunday and fewer trains run. Desperate and feeling abandoned, the taxi had shot off as soon as I got out. I decide to walk down the road until I reach some sign of habitation and seek help. After a few minutes, I come to an antique shop, not of the grand sort, but one that sells junk. There, I see a rather disheveled-looking owner who, like many antique dealers I have known, is talking deals with down-and-out-looking men around a stove in a back room. But he is kind. I am desperate for a toilet, so he escorts me to his, a relic of another time. After he hears my dilemma, he tells me that trains tend to come every hour. But if one does not show up, I should come back to his shop, that is, before he closes, and he would take me in his car back to his community, where I could take a bus that would take 2 hours to get to Ipswich, where I could catch a train to Cambridge. This offer is generous, but unappealing, for it would be replete with uncertainties and hours before I could return to Wolfson. After thanking him, I plod back to the station, return to the platform, bundle up as best I can, the temperature is dropping, sit on a bench, and hope that another train might come along in time. The wind has never ceased howling. It unsettles the fields and trees for as far as I can see. To pass the time, I take out Dickens's Dombey and Son and start reading. But unfortunately, I have reached chapters that describe the neglected London poor who suffer from hunger and want. These passages do not assuage my own growing despair. After about 3/4 of an hour, I check the electronic notice board, and lo and behold, I read a new announcement that another train is scheduled to arrive on time at 5 p.m. To say the least, I am immensely relieved. Because it is now almost dark, I have put the novel away and continue to sit or pace back and forth in an attempt to combat the increasing cold. Suddenly, out of the shadows, I see a figure, a young woman, rolling a large suitcase coming toward me. "Thank God," she says, "that someone else is here." We are both happy, relieved, to have each other's company. It turns out she is from Poland and works as a caregiver for the elderly. She moves around from job to job. However, she wants to train as an artist, so after finishing a job looking after an elderly lady in this area, she is now on her way to London to attend classes at St. Martin's School of Art. When she finds out that I am returning to Cambridge, her affect alters. As if under the spell of a soul that is in agony, she recounts an experience she had while looking after a man who got around with the help of a Zimmer. Odd how this item should keep turning up. They were slowly ambling on Coleridge Green near the Cambridge city centre, when, unexpectedly, they were confronted by a group of rough boys who were goading, as an initiation ritual, a young boy to get out his knife and stab the man she was in care of. As she tells it, the boy did not want to hurt an old man, so they were allowed to pass. She then called the police. While reciting her story, the young woman reminds me again of the ancient mariner in Coleridge's famous ballad. For with her glittering eye and skinny hand, she involuntarily holds my attention until she is momentarily free of her disturbing, haunting tale. I sense that she will eventually be compelled to tell it again. A stanza from the Ancient Mariner comes to mind. Since then, at an uncertain hour, that agony returns, until my ghastly tale is told, this heart within me burns. Shortly, out of the darkness and the rising mists of night, the train arrives. Exhausted and thankful, I plop down onto my seat in the heated carriage. Once in Ipswich, I cross over a bridge and scramble to find platform 3B. Platform 3A is visible, but where is 3B? Finally, the train to Cambridge arrives. It's a slow, plodding train that stops at many places. I'm back by 8 p.m. and soon in bed. Tomorrow I shall return to my library work and try to make the most of my few remaining days in Cambridge. Before I fall asleep, I think of how odd and confusing my visit to Southwold has been. In the dark of night, when I consider what I have seen and thought throughout my weekend wandering, I realize that each twist and turn of my rambles has engaged me in a series of distinctive, often conflicting realities, one after another. Not one moment or image has been constant or definitive. Each has differed from the other and offered yet another point of view. It is as if my impressions of Southwold and its byways resemble a series of reflections in the row of distorting mirrors that hang on one of the buildings standing on Southwold Pier. One mirror image differs, often quite radically, from the other. Not one is ultimate. Just before I left Southwold, I took several photos of my reflection in each of these mirrors. Depending on the curve of the glass, I was sometimes tall, at others squat and short and fat and thin, blunt-headed and pointed. And the world was either flat or round. Such was my experience in Southwold. Depending on where I placed myself during my wanderings, what I looked at altered in shape and affect. Not one single definitive portrait of the seaside town emerged always available. Like images in a series of distorted mirrors, Southwold sometimes looked posh, orderly, self-satisfied and content, but at other moments, disheveled, vulnerable, haunted, beautiful and wild. A reminder not only of the warp and coils of the mind, but also of how complicated and intricate the experience of any place is.